Hello class, Mike Harris here. I'm doing my latest and actually last attending exercise, which this week is our incarnational translation. And my incarnational translation is on the feeding of the 5,000. So here is my version, if you will. The small band of volunteers was ready for action. They'd been preparing for this day by feeding the homeless in their own community for several weeks. They would drive their mobile kitchen to the tent cities. Some nights they'd feed as many as 30 people. But now they were on their way to a real disaster. Armed with their mobile kitchen, this minivan full of volunteers was raring to go. When they arrived, these volunteers were amazed at what they saw. The path of destruction was beyond belief as the hurricane had ripped through the Springfield community and were the forces destructive as a bulldozer destroying a house of cards. Houses were reduced to piles of rubble. Cars were flipped upside down. Debris was everywhere. As they drove to the downtown area, it was clear that they were the first source of relief this area had seen. The place appeared deserted as most people had evacuated the city due to the advance warning of the storm. Almost in a state of complete shock, the group stopped in the parking lot of the Springfield Convention Center. This robust building, though showing the effects of the storm, had stood strong. The leader of the team, Pastor John, got out of the minibus and led the team towards the convention center. The news had reported that a large number of folk who had chosen not to evacuate had sought refuge inside this building. When they entered the building, they were amazed at what they saw. Thousands of people were sitting and lying and milling around the inside of this building. Immediately the team began to minister to the group. One of the team was a doctor, and they were able to help people who had physical needs. And while this was going on, Pastor John, the leader of the group, began to speak to the crowd. He recognized that this group needed something to cling on to. They needed a sense of hope. He preached, and people listened. While the rest of the team was ministering to the crowd, it quickly became apparent that the biggest need was food. These people had not eaten for at least 24 hours, and they were hungry. And this small group of volunteers then approached their leader, Pastor John, and said, "We need to find a way to feed these people, but there are so many. We just don't have that kind of food." All they had inside the mobile kitchen was enough soup to feed about 30 people and a box of saltine crackers. Pastor John led the group of volunteers inside the mobile kitchen. They took the cans of soup and the saltine crackers, and they formed a prayer circle around Pastor John. Pastor John then lifted up his hands and he prayed, "Lord, you know what we need. Thank you for providing." He then put on a big pot on the stove and began boiling the soup. Once the soup had come to the boil, Pastor John provided each volunteer with a jug of soup and a handful of saltine crackers. For hours the team went back and forth from the mobile kitchen, filling the jug with soup and getting more crackers. Once inside, the volunteers poured the soup into bowls that were found in the convention center kitchen. One jug of soup was enough to feed 50 people. While all were amazed that the soup and the crackers never ran out, they never questioned what was going on. They just kept feeding and feeding until everyone was fed. Then, after everyone had eaten, the volunteers picked up the trash. They collected thousands of disposable bowls, some with soup still remaining, and pieces of crackers. Amazingly, everyone had been fed to the point of satisfaction. That's my incarnational translation. I elected to tell a story that my congregation would understand because we have a mobile kitchen, and when disasters occur, the Salvation Army is very quickly on the scene. Also, we have a group that go out and they do feed the homeless. They do feed people in the community. And so I felt that this translated rather well. I didn't want to take away the miracle. The miracle had to occur, in my opinion. I thought of ways of creating a different form of miracle, but I didn't want to. To me, the miracle was that the food never ran out, it just kept going. And so I had to be consistent with that piece. I really felt very, very strongly about that. But I do think that it also translates, as I said, quite well to my particular congregation. So I'm hoping that's a pretty good translation. I look forward to seeing everybody else's, and God bless you guys. And if you don't see my face again, probably not a bad thing, but if you don't see it again before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you all, and God bless.